This morning, Iran's president is dead following a helicopter crash yesterday. A drone sent in from Turkey located the crash near the border with Azerbaijan more than 12 hours after that chopper vanished in bad weather. ABC's Andrew Denbert has the latest.
This morning, Iran's president and several other leaders have been found dead at this helicopter crash site. President Ibrahim Raisi, Iran's foreign minister, and 7 others were aboard the aircraft. Drone video shows the site on a steep wooded hillside, little of the aircraft remaining beyond its blue and white tail. Raisi, seen here in the helicopter on Sunday, traveling to the Iranian border with Azerbaijan for an event. Heavy fog blanketed the area of northwest Iran, making it difficult for search and rescue teams to locate the aircraft. After a more than 12-hour search, drones provided by Turkey using thermal cameras pinpointed the crash site. Overnight Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer saying there was no evidence of foul play.
It looks like an accident. There was very bad foggy weather in northwest Iran where the copter crashed.
Elected in 2021, President Raisi was a hardliner and the second most powerful figure in Iran. He was seen as a top contender for replacing Ayatollah Khomeini, who vows after the crash there will be no disruption to state affairs. But just weeks after Iran and Israel launched unprecedented strikes on each other, experts are questioning how a transition of power in Iran could affect a region already in turmoil.
This is the Rebel Call Channel. Welcome to today's show. What you are witnessing is the staging of events that will bring about other countries' involvement in World War III. What you are likely to hear come out of this is people starting to discuss a potential false flag, saying that Israel attacked the helicopter. But let's keep this clear, very, very clear. Raisi is a product of Israel. He was hand-selected and put in to be the president of Iran, just like all of these people are hand-picked and put into power. It's the psychological operation that comes out of fake assassinations and other staged events that bring us into these world wars, that give these countries a reason to publicly have beefs, so to speak, with other countries. And this is exactly what's needed to bring about World War III, because we're talking about a president who is supposedly assassinated, and that's what's going to come out of this. Right now, it's just a helicopter crash, but you're going to hear stories about Israel. Even if the media tries to play it off and say, well, we're not really sure, they're going to say that, well, that's because the media is covering for Israel, and Iran is going to say that it was a direct attack from Israel. And you could see, if you're wondering how this worked, you could see very clearly how they went out of their way to stage that photo, that video clip of Raisi on the helicopter. They went out of their way and said, this is a clip from him on the helicopter before the helicopter went down, right? Because this old guy and a couple other leaders wanted to just, what do they want to put this on their TikTok channel? Or they want to put this on their social media account? I thought the Iranians and the Islamic world would be against social media, being how satanic it is. But they wanted you to see this specifically so that they could say, look, here's video proof of him on the helicopter, and then here's video proof of the helicopter down. They couldn't have filmed this a different day, or, nobody will think that far ahead, but they strategically want to show you this in case you try to say that he wasn't really on the helicopter. Now, for those of you that don't know about Raisi, he's on record at NATO, at the United Nations, in September of 2023. This is a quote from him. And I'll spare you him speaking it in his gibberish. I'll say it in English. He said, the world is changing and moving to a new world order, and this way is irreversible. The project of Americanizing the world has failed, which means capitalism around the world, right? That's failed, he said, and it's inevitable. It's irreversible, a new world order, which tells us that this is one of the people who is trying to bring about a new world order. In addition to that, you have this allegiance that was formed between China, Iran, and Russia, which, again, this will bring that group closer to waging war on America, America siding with Israel, China, Iran, and Russia siding together. And then you're talking about a major, major world war where they'll have the ability to then shut off the power grid and blame it on Russia, and create false flags in America and blame it on China. That's exactly what they want to do. And when this guy openly talks about not just bringing about an irreversible new world order, he also talked about the destruction of the US dollar, which I did cover last year. He specifically was on record in 2023 saying that they need to destroy the US dollar in order to create a new economic system. It's necessary to remove it. And that's what people like Raisi want to see happen. They want to see the destruction of the US dollar. They wanted to see the destruction of the American experiment. So in order to do that, these people have to stage wars to bring about reasoning for these countries to go to war with the other countries. But they're not going to war with other countries. They're going to war on the civilians. This will allow psychologically people to accept open attacks on American soil. They'll believe that it's this, they'll believe it's that. They'll constantly believe in a boogeyman. The conservatives are getting wielded into this, siding with Israel, right? But the reality of the matter is that Israel controls all sides of this equation. They put Raisi in power. They're only going forward with this now because they control all sides. And if you don't understand how this works, let me play for you a clip from 2012 where a pro-Israel lobbyist by the name of Patrick Clausen spoke about how they were going to need a false flag against Iran to bring about, the next world war. And he talks about how a lot of the wars in history, which they're all done by design, there's blueprints for every one of them. They go back to Albert Pike. All the blueprints just happen to come true, right? But it's going to take a false flag event. In this case, more of a psyop, because they didn't really kill the guy. He's one of them. But by sending him off somewhere to go, hide out for the rest of his days, that he's actually helping bring forward this new world order, because these fake events help bring about fake staged world wars, which are nothing more than attacks on civilians. So listen to how this guy, this lobbyist, talked openly about most of our wars and how it takes false flags to bring them about.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for U.S. interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best for somebody else.
Most of our wars and how it takes false flags to bring them about. So that was in 2012. So now you actually have something. And if you look at a lot of the narratives around what's been going on, right? What's going to happen now is going to be major. And they're even openly talking about the helicopter crash and how it's going to reverberate across the Middle East, right? And I'll get into Albert Pike towards the end of this video for anyone out there that doesn't know, but tensions have never been higher, right? What did we hear a couple of months ago? A couple of months ago, Raisi and Supreme Leader Ayatollah launched hundreds of drones and ballistic missiles at Israel in response to an airstrike that killed 2 Iranian generals and 5 officers, right? Do you remember that? Okay, this is all set up. These are airstrikes that are just staged airstrikes, any that hit or attacks on civilians. People look at this stuff and they side with the governments, right? They're like, oh, all these brainwashed Democratic kids out there at the colleges who are all siding with Palestine. It's like, why don't you just side with the civilians, the Palestinian civilians? They just side against the governments who are responsible for doing this, but they don't. They pick a side. They've trained everyone to be tribalistic, right? You're loyal to your party, you're loyal to your party, you're loyal to your team. That's how they look at this stuff. They don't use common sense at all and say, you know what? We got some corrupt militaries. We got some corrupt governments. Maybe the civilians need to do something about it and stop these people from waging war on civilians because their job is to be working for it. But no, they don't get that far. They can't think that far. So they talked openly about how, and Raisi talked openly about how they were getting close. One more type of an attack on Iran would lead towards a major event occurring. And I would think that an attack on a president of Iran would in fact lead towards something very large happening.
Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi has told the Emir of Qatar that Tehran will respond to any Israeli attack against its interests. Iran's foreign minister is also warning Israel of an immediate response.
If the Israeli regime makes a mistake, this time Iran's response, as Iran's military commanders announced, will not be minimal, but immediate and severe.
Our correspondent Dorsa Jabari is in Tehran with more on Iran's reaction.
The war of words continue between Iranian officials and their Israeli counterparts. The Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi received a phone call from the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, on Monday evening. During that conversation, the Emir of Qatar expressed their praise for the actions that Iran took against Israel, and the Emir said that it conveyed a very strong message to everyone. The Iranian president, for his part, said that should Israel continue these threats and make good on their threats that they've been making against Iran and carry out any kind of actions, Iran will respond much stronger, and there will be a broader response to Israel than what we've seen in Operation True Promise. The Iranian foreign minister has also been speaking to nearly a dozen other foreign ministers around the world, highlighting Iran's position and issuing further warnings, saying that any action that would be taken by Israel will be met by an immediate response by Iranian officials. For now, there is a wait-and-see mood here in Iran. Of course, Iranian officials are on high alert, waiting to see what Israel will do next, but they have urged the officials in Israel not to continue this kind
President
of
behavior.
Iran
would in fact lead towards something
Dorsa
very
Jabari,
large
Al Jazeera,
happening.
Tehran.
So this allegiance between Iran, Russia, and China is very, very important to talk about, because they've openly been meeting together, talking about their own currency, the end of the US dollar, how we need to weaken the US dollar, right? And then you see how Biden's administration, what they're doing, how we're siding, how we're pushing us towards Israel and siding with Israel. And really, the United States of America is nothing more than Israel's great mind control experiment that started after World War II, what they've done in this country. Now, we go back to Albert Pike and what he openly discussed with World War III. Again, it's very important to note this, because this is a blueprint. So when you hear blueprint, this isn't a prediction. This isn't him saying in the 1800s, hey, this is how World War III is going to play out. He's saying this is how World War III needs to play out. This is how we need to design World War III so we could bring about this new world order. And remember what he says in this speech that I'll read to you about Lucifer. Pike says, quote, "The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose theistic spirits will from the moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, without knowing where to render adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in public view." And again, that's a blueprint, and it's hard for people to read that and understand about Pike, about Lucifer, about the Luciferian doctrine, but you're seeing the Luciferian doctrine being promoted around as this global communism. It's this love movement, this tolerance movement. And right now they're persuading Christians into that movement. And Christians will eventually be in bed with the synagogue of Satan and not even realize that the more watered down the synagogue of Satan makes Christianity into accepting and loving sin, the more further away Christians get pulled from God, from Christ, our King. So this is what we're headed towards. And again, I guarantee you that you're going to hear stories about this helicopter going down, and you're going to hear about Israel's involvement. Just give it time, a couple of days, hours. Oh, now they're investigating that. Something happened with the helicopter. There's some suspicious activity with the helicopter beforehand, right? Because they gave you all the buildup beforehand. They gave you Raisi threatening Israel. We're going to come after you if you do this. We're going to do this if you do that, right? So, of course, it makes perfect sense, right? But it wouldn't be a false flag because nothing would actually happen to this guy because he's working for Israel. And that's the point. When he talks about bringing about a new world order, he's not talking about against a new world. He's talking about bringing about a new world order, how the project of Americanizing the world has failed. This is what they have to do in order to bring about a new world order. They create staged events. They fake deaths. They fake attacks. This gets civilians on board. They start tribalizing. They start siding with specific sides. Then we start seeing the emergence of other countries involved. Oh, here comes Russia. Oh, here comes China, right? Well, America's already been pitted against Russia and China. And America's starting to show that they're aligned with Israel, which all the countries are aligned with Israel. That's the point. Who do you think's behind all of it? They are. So we're going to hear about suspicious activity with the helicopter, right? Remember, they went out of their way to show you that video clip. Where did they get that clip? What happened right before it went down? That got uploaded onto what? YouTube? Onto Twitter? That clip of him on the helicopter? Right? They said that that was from the specific flight. Right then. They said this is his last seen shot of him while he was up in the air, right? So what did the guy do? He had Wi-Fi up there. He just uploaded it real quick. And then boom, down it went because they couldn't have recovered it in the crash, could they? What, did the phone survive? Did he have a good iPhone cover that survived, this helicopter crash proof? And then they just went through the phone within the last 12 hours, 24 hours, find the clip and then want to show everybody and then release it to all the news stations? No. They want to show you that because they want you to believe that he was really on that helicopter. Just in case anybody out there questions whether he was or not. Just in case anybody out there goes through actual documentation of this guy talking about at the United Nations bringing about a new world order and how it's irreversible. Well, to make it irreversible, they need to stage events to bring this about. And when this is brought about, then it's believable that attacks in on American soil are from these outside sources. Instead of the civilians realizing it's coming from within and going and finding these people and stopping it from occurring. And then, of course, it makes it easier to manipulate and move people around like chess pieces when they take a side in the war, right? All of America, well, this is who we're at side with. Then it brings more division in America because Democrats will side with Iran and conservatives will side with Israel. And it's just the perfect coup. And that's what it is. That's what it is. So they showed you the pictures of him on the helicopter for a reason. They don't even want you to think for 1 second that he wasn't on there. Nobody's going to ask questions and say, where'd they get this? Is this on YouTube? This guy uploaded it? Right? And if they do, they'll have a lie in place as they always do. But remember, Raisi was warning that something major would lead to a major response from Iran. Now, I'd say this is something pretty major, his wink, wink, death, right? Now we're going to see what comes out of this. Now we're going to see what comes from the other nations like Russia and China, who are in bed with Iran, this three-headed monster, right? This new axis of evil that they've created, right? The ultimate boogeyman. And keep in mind the stories about our border and our border security that they've deliberately put out there for years now, telling you about how anybody can cross that border. So it makes it more believable that an attack is from an outside source because the border's open. Because if they didn't tell you that stuff, you'd say, how is it possible for another country to attack America? We're America. We have the best defense. We have the best military. Well, the border's open, right? So somebody could come right in and do whatever they want. They can recreate the 11th day of September all over again, all over the country. And everybody will believe it because they'll say, well, these idiots left the border open because they wanted guys to come in here and vote illegally. And they don't even realize that their vote doesn't count. They don't need to do that to make people vote illegally. Your vote is illegal technically to these people because it doesn't count. They don't count any of the votes. They keep you in the psychological operation by making you think that your vote counts because that prevents an actual revolution when you realize that a bunch of corrupt people, a small amount of them, are doing all of this. And they're using the media. They're using all these tools to manipulate your mind because the civilians could actually stop this from happening. But again, they need staged events like this to bring about order out of chaos. And that's what's going to come out of it. Keep an eye on stories regarding Oh man, there's some foul play could be involved. Oh, they're investigating how the helicopter went down. Oh, there's rumors of a drone flying over, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Israel will deny it, right? That's how this works. They'll deny it. They won't admit to it. But Iran will say that they did. And then Biden will throw his 2 cents in. That makes no sense. And then everybody will continue to get angry about it. They'll investigate this like it's actually a real event. People will look at the footage and be like, does that look like maybe a drone went off in the sky? Oh, but Israel's saying they weren't involved. Oh, Israel was saying they're not involved, so we take them at their word. And then other sides will say, no, we can't take them at their word. They're lying. They did this. Bada bing, bada boom. That's how they milk you into their psychological operations. And of course, Raisi, right at the face of it all, right? Wants to destroy the US dollar, wants to, the project of Americanizing the world to end because it's failed, as he said. And the world's changing and moving to a new world order. And this way is irreversible. The only way to do that is to create staged things like this so that they could bring about their global government. Because these types of psychological operations like assassinations, etc., the civilians get emotionally invested in this stuff, and it makes it more believable. Makes it more believable that these countries then side with one side and then we'll go into World War III together. And ultimately, it's needed to bring about a new world order. So keep an eye on the story. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.